Tell me whether the screen is visible to you or not. I think the screen is visible
Yes,
to
sir,
everyone.
visible.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So let me start with the discussion that in last day already I have already started a discussion about storage unit, right? So this is the main part of the computer central processing unit in a computer system. It consists of these three sub-components: storage unit, control unit, arithmetic logic unit. What is the job of the arithmetic logic unit? The job of the arithmetic logic unit is to collect numbers, or you can say it will collect data from the storage unit, or from the memory of the computer system, and based on the user request, it will perform some operations on that data. Okay, so I told in my previous classes that as an input, the user generally provides two kinds of input. One is data and one is instruction. Both are dependent on each other. With that, I have already explained that without data, instruction has no use. Without instruction, data has no use. So they are dependable on each other, right? So suppose the user provides two data, 8 and 2. These two numbers user provides from outside through their keyboard, right? So this 8 and 2 is first stored temporarily in the storage unit, okay, into the RAM. Temporary means RAM, because RAM is a volatile kind of memory, okay, whereas ROM and secondary memory are permanent storage, so it is a non-volatile kind of memory, right? So temporary storage means RAM is always a temporary storage because it is a volatile kind of memory. So this 8 and 2, these two numbers are generally stored into RAM, okay. Then the user send an instruction along with that two numbers. What is the instruction? That addition instruction. So user wants to perform an addition on those two numbers, 8 and 2, right? So that instruction has been observed by control unit. The job of the control unit is to manage all other units in our computer system. That means control unit can manage storage unit, control unit will manage input unit, control unit will also manage output unit and arithmetic logic unit. So it will act like a manager or supervisor of all the subcomponents of a computer system. So control unit job is to provide the instructions as per the request of the user. Okay, because memory is a hardware unit which has whose job is only store data and send data, only store data and send data, nothing else. Okay, but control unit, storage unit cannot perform the operations on those data automatically. Okay, because storage unit has no provision to perform the to access the instruction or decode the instruction. That is only done by the control unit. Control unit can understand the instruction that user provides from outside world. Okay, it may be addition, subtraction, or any kind of instructions. Okay, mathematical instructions or logical instructions. Control unit can decode that instruction, and that instructions will be sent to the storage unit in terms of signal. Okay, in terms of signal, different signals that are sending from the control unit to the storage unit and arithmetic logical unit, or any other input units and output units with different kinds of signals, right? So control unit is actually sending the signal to the arithmetic logical unit. That what is the signal? That user wants to perform addition on the two data, 8 and 2. So arithmetic logical unit has got the instruction to perform addition, right? And control unit send the data, gives the instruction to the storage unit or memory that it will send the data to the arithmetic logical unit for the addition operation. So storage unit sends the data to the arithmetic logical unit for the addition operation. So now the arithmetic logical unit has two input. Okay, one input is the data coming from the storage unit or RAM. Another input is the instruction coming from a control unit in terms of signal. Okay, now the job of the arithmetic logical unit is to add those two numbers, 8 and 2, and produce the result, that is 10. And that 10 will again resend to the storage unit. Now this 10 will be stored. Now this 10 can be will be stored temporarily in a RAM or a volatile memory. Now that is the user choice whether he or she wants to store that data, that output 10, permanently into secondary memory or not. Okay, so that totally depends upon the programmer or the user who actually gives the instruction, right? So in this way, the entire operation is working inside the central processing unit or CPU. Okay, I think it is clear to you how the entire operation is working. So the job of the input unit to give data and instruction. The job of the storage unit is to store that data which has been provided from the input unit and send the data to the arithmetic logical unit, while control unit gives the permission to send. And control unit also decode the instructions coming from the user and send that instruction to the arithmetic logical unit, whose job is to only doing arithmetical or logical operation. ALU job is only doing arithmetical logical operation. So whatever data ALU will receive, it will either doing arithmetical operations on those data or doing logical operations on those data. But which type of operation it has to be performed, that will be decided by the control unit. Not decided by the control unit, that will be mentioned or instructed by the control unit. And control unit has got that instruction from where? From the input unit or from the user. Okay, because control unit is the only intelligent one inside this computer system who can decode the instructions from the user. Okay, no other unit can decode the instruction from the user. That's why control unit is called the brain, the gray matter, not brain, the gray matter of the computer system. We also have a gray matter in our head. Okay, our head is the CPU, right? And within our head there is a gray matter, which is the actual brain, which will nothing but a collection of neurons. So here in computer system, this control unit is working like gray matter, which is nothing but a collection of neurons who has the capability to decode the instructions coming from the user. Okay. Do you understand till now? Anyone has any question? How the CPU is working? Is it understood by everyone? Anyone has any question? Then you can ask me. Do you understand? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is
Yes,
it clear
sir.
to everyone?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Okay, very good. Now we are coming into the storage unit conception, which we have started in the last class. The storage unit is what I have already told or discussed in the last class. The storage unit is consisting or generally divided into three types. One is primary storage, second one is secondary storage, and the third one is tertiary storage. So mainly we are focusing on primary and secondary storage because they are directly as a part of the computer system. But tertiary storage is not a part of computer system. It is a outside device. Okay. So tertiary storage, which I already discussed, the CD, DVD, pen drive, the data by the help of which we can move data from one part to another part, that is called tertiary storage, right? So CD, DVD, and your floppy drive, or you can say your pen drive, all are part of tertiary storage. So we are not interested to directly working or directly discussing about the tertiary storage. Okay, that tertiary storage is generally helps to move the data easily from one location to another location. Okay, without any trouble. Now we are going to discuss about the primary storage and secondary storage, right? So primary storage generally consists of two parts. These are the two parts. One is RAM, random access memory, and second one is ROM, which I already discussed. So what is the main job of the RAM? The RAM is a unit. In the last class, I discussed about the sequential device and random access device. I discussed in detail what is the difference between sequential device and random access device, and how the data actually stored within the sequential device, like in the floppy drive or in case of those old cassettes, which actually consist of the black strip. Okay, so how data stored in sequential device and how data stored into random access device, that I already discussed in the last class. And what is the advantage of random access device over sequential device, that is also discussed in the last class. Okay, so random access memory, RAM, is a volatile memory. That means the data has been stored until the power of the computer system contains. Okay, if you switch off the power of the computer system, that all the data will be released from the memory. Okay, or will be deleted from the memory. That's why it's called a volatile memory. But RAM is one of the fastest memory. Okay, among all the three memory, like secondary memory and your tertiary memory, RAM is one of the fastest memory. That's why the RAM is the most expensive memory compared to secondary memory and your tertiary memory, right? RAM generally are two types: static RAM and dynamic RAM. And is as an internal structure, RAM generally can be made of with the help of transistors, or it can be made of with the help of cross-coupled diode. Okay, diodes or transistors. Okay, have you studied electronics in your first year in any subject previous?
No, sir.
Regarding transistors or diode, do you have any idea about it? Anyone has any idea about transistor, diode, these things and their working functionalities, their operations? Any idea about it? Yes
sir,
or no?
actually ওটা আমাদের 10+2 লেভেলে ছিল একটুখানি হলো ফিজিক্স
ফিজিক্স একটুখানি
সবার
ছিল।
ছিল সবার ছিল মোটামুটি।
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Okay, okay. Then it will be easier. Actually, I want to show you, for your knowledge purpose, that how the RAM is actually making. This is a diagram of a static RAM. Okay. So in the examination, if you are able to draw this diagram is very easy to draw, right? If you're able to draw this diagram, it will carry some marks. Okay. If you're able to tell the functionality of this cross-coupled diode, this is actually called as the inverter. So you have actually, I think you have some idea about this diode. It is an inverter diode. This bubble sign is working like inverter. Inverter
Yes,
means
sir.
if the input of this diode is 0, then the output is 1. If the input of this diode is 1, then output is 0. That is the job of the inverter diode. Okay. And these two are actually, what are these two? Tell me. What are the symbols of these
Cells,
two?
sir.
This one and this one. This M6
Cells,
and
sir.
M5. What are no, cell. This is the entire cell. This is called a cell. This is called a cell. This entire diagram is a cell. Okay. What are these two?
Battery.
No.
Sir, is it switch?
Yes, it's kind of switch, but it has some specific name. It's working like a switch. It is working like a switch, but it has some specific name in the circuit. This is called
It's a key.
transistor. Transistor. Okay. It has a collector side, it has an emitter side, it has a base. It is called transistor. Okay. So a transistor is working like a switch. When this base is connected, then it is working like a switch. The current can be passed from this side to this side. Okay. When this base is connected. When the base is not connected, that means transistor is working like a off switch. Off switch means current cannot be passed from this side to this side. Okay. And this WL is actually called word line, and this BL is actually called bit line. WL is called word line, and BL is called bit line. Okay. This is actually a single cell structure of a static RAM. Single cell structure. Okay. So this cell structure will be implemented as a million and billions of this single cell structure will be collected together or gathered together to create your actual RAM. The RAM is the chip within motherboard, you will get a RAM chip. So within the RAM chip, it will nothing but a collection of these hundred and millions and billion trillions of this cell. Okay, it will look like this. This. Okay, this is a dynamic RAM. So dynamic RAM generally consists of only transistor. That was static RAM. It was a static RAM. Okay, it will consist of cross-coupled diode. Why it is called cross-coupled? Because the direction of the diodes are inverse of each other. Okay, reverse of each other. That's why it's called cross-coupled diode. And it will also consist of 2 transistors and 1 cross-coupled diode. Okay, this is a static RAM. And dynamic RAM generally consists of, this is a picture of a dynamic RAM. This is a picture of a dynamic RAM. Okay, this is a single cell. This one is a single cell. Okay, this one is a single cell. This one is another cell. This one is another cell. This one is another cell. So in this whole RAM, how many cells are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Each and every row 4 cells. And total how many rows? 4 rows. So 4 into 4, total 16 cells are there. Total 16 cells are there. Apart from this, there's other sort of hardware is it's connected with it, like Mux. Mux is multiplexer. Okay, so we don't need to know about these Mux. Okay, this is 4:1 Mux multiplexer is actually connected for the working for a data selector job. Okay, we don't need to go into the details of it. Okay, it is beyond of your curriculum right now, syllabus right now. But you have to remember only this thing, that the cell structure of a dynamic RAM. DRAM. This is called DRAM, dynamic RAM. Okay, the RAM are 2 types: static RAM and dynamic RAM. So this is a single cell structure of a dynamic RAM. So dynamic RAM means static RAM holds data for all the time. Okay, static RAM holds data for all the time. That means it will not forget the data. It will always retain the data. Whereas dynamic RAM decaying the data. Okay, after some time, it actually decay the data. Okay, very gradually or slowly, it will actually forget the data in dynamic RAM. It will be replaced by a new data. Okay, why the dynamic RAM is decaying? Because dynamic RAM contains capacitor. This is a capacitor. Okay, these two are the capacitor. not transistor. These two are the capacitor. Okay, these two are the capacitor. So dynamic RAM generally consists of with the help of two capacitors. And the job of the capacitors, if you have learned capacitor in your 12th class, then you know the job of the capacitor is store data, hold data for some time until it will get decayed. Capacitor decay hote thake. The data will be lost very slowly inside the capacitor. Okay, so that is the job of a dynamic RAM. So you just need to remember only this single structure, only the cell of this single. You don't need to remember this entire structure. Okay, only a single cell structure. So if in the examination the difference between static RAM, dynamic RAM came, or the explanation or between static RAM and dynamic RAM came, then you can draw this picture to represent the internal cell structure of a dynamic RAM, and you can draw this picture to represent the cell structure of a static RAM, SRAM. So just remember, static RAM consists of transistor, two transistors, and one cross-coupled diode. One cross-coupled diode. And whereas dynamic RAM or DRAM consists of only two capacitors. Okay, two capacitors. There is no conception of transistors or cross-coupled diode in dynamic RAM or DRAM. Is it clear to everyone? I'm going to overall description dilam. I have given a very overall description. Is it clear to everyone?
Clear. Yes, sir.
মোটামুটি draw করে বোঝাতে পারবে? Can you draw this picture and give a basic explanation why dynamic RAM decaying information because of this capacitor? Capacitors, principle of a capacitor is to store data or hold data for a certain amount of time, and after the time accomplishes, very gradually or slowly the capacitor will decaying data. Okay, so that is called a internal memory structure or cell structure of a dynamic RAM. Okay, এর বেশি ডিটেইলসটা পড়ার দরকার নেই, তোমরা খুব বেশি ইলেকট্রনিক্স জানো না, আদারওয়াইজ for BTech people I will go into a detail. আমি এগুলো সব পড়াই BTech people দের. Okay, to know the internal structure of the static RAM dynamic. So you will get interested. Okay, শুধু একটা block diagram, you are actually learning right now a black box diagram, that these are RAM, these are ROM. You know only the black box, but you don't know what is the white box, what is the internal structure of the static RAM and dynamic RAM. So that's why I have just given a very basic flavor of static RAM and dynamic RAM. Okay, I think it is clear to everyone, right? Okay, I'm coming into a party example. Okay, let me show you the ROM structure. ROM structure is also very easy to understand. Let me show it. These are the ROM chip. Okay, we actually in your digital electronics lab, we actually work with the ROM chip and RAM chip. With both the chip, we will actually work in our digital electronics lab. I don't know whether you have digital electronics lab in future or not, but we should work with that. Okay. Now this is a ROM structure. Okay, in the ROM, you don't need to remember this structure. It's quite complex for you, but you just remember the ROM is generally consist of a decoder. A decoder, just remember this term. ROM is generally consist of a decoder and an OR gate array. Or gates array. That's all. You don't need to draw this structure. You just remember that ROM generally consists of internally with the help of a decoder. Decoder is an electronic circuit and an OR gates array. Okay. Now the ROM can be again divided into these four types: programmable ROM, erasable programmable read-only ROM, electrically erasable programmable read-only ROM. Actually, ROM generally the ROM chips are generally programmable in nature. That means the programmer can burn some kind of code within the ROM. Okay, so it will works like a intelligent chip. ROM is working like an intelligent chip inside your computer system. The programmer can burn some sort of logic inside the ROM. So after the ROM is actually a non-volatile memory. So whatever you will burn, you will have to remove that code from the ROM, or you have to remove that burning logic from the ROM. So how to remove it? That is not possible in case of PROM. PROM is non-removable. Okay, we cannot remove the logic or burning the logic which whatever has been already burned inside the ROM. We cannot remove the logic. It's not possible. So to remove the logic, we have to use this EPROM. Okay, erasable, programmable, read-only memory. EPROM means erasable, programmable, read-only memory. So in that case, we can reprogram the ROM and we can erase many times. Whatever we want, how many times we want, we can do that. Okay. In case of fourth, this one is also doing the same job, but only difference is that here it is only erasable, here it is electrically erasable. Okay. So generally prefer in between these two, EPROM and EEPROM, generally we prefer to use this one, EEPROM. Why? Because electrically erasable, the erasing technique, the erasing or reprogramming technique in the PROM is easily, it can be easily done with the help of this EEPROM instead of this EPROM. Because to erase the data or reprogram the data within a PROM, in case of EPROM, we will have to use a specific frequency of ultraviolet light, okay, which is passed for around 40 minutes to erase the data. So this is a very complex arrangement to do, okay, to get an ultraviolet light with a specific frequency which should be passed around 40 minutes to erase the data. So this is a very complex arrangement to perform, to do. So that's why we generally avoid to use the EPROM. Instead of that, we are interested to use, most widely used, the most popular use is double EPROM, okay, which we can be reprogrammed and erased as many times as we want with the help of only electrically, without using ultraviolet light. Okay, electrically we can delete that program or erase that program, okay, without using ultraviolet. Here we don't need to use any concept of ultraviolet light. So obviously it is easy to handle, easy to erase the previous information or reprogram the ROM very easily. Okay, and that's why our BIOS chip of a computer is stored in this memory. Okay, so whenever you will open your machine, if you press the escape sign multiple times when your machine is booting, at the same time you will press the escape sign or escape key multiple times, you can enter into a BIOS. Okay, and BIOS is generally such kind of ROM which will actually support or part of this EEPROM, electrically erasable and programmable read-only memory. Okay, and this flash drive or flash ROM is actually our USB flash drive. That means our pen drive, our MP3 player, our digital cameras, modern and solid state device, all are examples of this flash ROM. Okay, all are examples of this flash ROM. So tertiary memory is also part of this flash ROM. Okay, flash ROM can also part of this tertiary memory or whatever you say. Actually, our pen drive, our MP3 player, our digital camera is generally made of this flash ROM. Okay, it is very fast to remove the data. Okay, and we can store the information in an arrangement or array of memory cells made from floating gate transistors. Okay, so these are the various types of ROM. Okay, now come into the example that I have given in the last class, that party example. Okay, it is easier for you to understand the principle called locality of reference, right? The very interesting principle, locality of reference. The main difference between RAM and ROM, the first difference between RAM and RAM is random access memory, ROM is read-only memory. The full form, but logical difference states that RAM is actually a volatile memory. Okay, the data cannot be stored permanently inside the RAM, whereas ROM is non-volatile memory, so data can be stored permanently inside the ROM. Okay. Second difference is that RAM can be used for both read and write purpose. Okay, RAM contents are editable. It can be used for both read and write purpose, which can be modifiable, whereas ROM contents are non-modifiable. Okay, it can be only used for the read purpose. That's why it's called read-only memory. It cannot be used for the write purpose. These are the two major differences between RAM and ROM. Okay, that you have to remember. And apart from these, there are some other differences like the various types of RAMs are there: static RAM, dynamic RAM. ROMs are various types: PROM, EEPROM, flash ROM. Okay, which I already discussed, right? If anyone has any question, you can ask me. Okay, if anyone has any doubt, you can interrupt me and ask me. Now, the primary. So let's give you the example of the party example which I was given. So the example I was given that you have passed the graduation exam. Okay, So you have thrown a party in your house. Okay. So you have called your 5 friends as a guest. So you are the host as a guest to invite into a party, and you are planning to give them a welcome drink, like cold drinks. You are planning to give them. So 5 friends. So that's why you have stored 5 bottles in your refrigerator, right? 5 or 6 bottles in the refrigerator, which will be enough to serve your invited guest. Okay, 5 friends are coming. Now, when they will arrive for the party at your home, they will bring their family members. Okay, they will carry their family members. Suppose each friends carry, suppose 3 members each friend. So total 5 friends are invited. So each friend 3 members means total 15 members or 15 guests are coming or have come in your home, at your home, to attend the party. Now you feel a big problem because you have stored only 5 cold drinks bottle for the 5 friends for as a welcome drink. Now 15 people have come. So how we can arrange? It is not possible to arrange to serve all the 15 people with those 5 bottles of cold drinks. So you are going to search your refrigerator whether you will find any other extra bottles or not. So after you will fail to search into the refrigerator, what is your next aim to do? What you want to do? Okay, how you are going to manage this party? Okay, so what you are going to do? You will go to a local shop where generally cold drinks they are selling the cold drinks. You will go to a local shop, and in the local shop you will meet the owner of the local shop, and you want that you require 10 more bottles in your local shop. 10 more bottles. Okay, but your local shop at that time, your local shop refrigerator contains only 5 bottles. So you are still short of 5 extra bottles because there are total 15 members. 5 bottles are already present at your home in your refrigerator, and the 5 bottles you will get from your local shop. But extra 5 bottles, extra 5 bottles are more needed to serve total 15 members. So where should you go then? So after that, you will go to a much larger shop, a bigger shop like Big Bazaar, where you will get any number of bottles as per your choice, as per your requirements, right? So in this way, you will carry the rest of the bottles from the Big Bazaar, and you will collect all those bottles. You will store all those bottles into your local refrigerator to make it cool, and then serve to 15 guests. Okay, all the 15 guests. So this is an overall party example. Now, how we can relate this party example with your memory classifications, right? RAM, ROM, cache memory. Okay, so cache memory is a special kind of memory which will actually placed in between CPU and RAM, which is actually placed in between CPU and RAM to make the communication between the processor and the memory data faster. The cache memory play a very vital role, right? It's called cache memory, CACHE, cache memory. Okay, to make the processing speed of reading and writing or accessing data from the memory faster, cache memory play a very vital role. Now you can consider your local refrigerator, that means your refrigerator at your home, as a cache memory, where you are going to store very recently used data or very recently used cold drinks. Okay, and second, in the local shop, you can consider local shop as a RAM, random access memory, where you are going to search the data. If you are not going to find enough data into the cache memory, then you are going to search the data in your local shop or RAM. And the Big Bazaar, you are considering or you're comparing Big Bazaar with your secondary memory or your hard disk. That means if the data searching is failed in cache memory and the RAM, then you will go for the searching for the secondary memory. ROM is not coming. ROM is using for different purpose, totally different purpose. You cannot use ROM for this purpose. Okay, ROM is used for totally different purpose. But for searching data, for accessing data, you are mainly using cache memory, followed by RAM, and then followed by your secondary memory. Okay. So in this way, they are related with each other. So if the data is found at the Big Bazaar, or you can say your secondary memory, the data will be first collected to your local shop. Okay, that means into RAM, and then the data will be collected from RAM to your local refrigerator. That is from RAM to your local refrigerator, means RAM to your cache memory. Okay, and then you are dispatching the data or dispatching the gold holdings to the guest of your party. That means the guest of your party who are actually absorbing your holdings is working like a CPU or the processing unit of your computer system, who absorbing data to perform some sort of task, to perform some sort of jobs. Okay, so this is the relationship between RAM, cache memory, and ROM, and this entire relationship is searching data, finding data, bringing data from secondary to RAM and RAM to cache memory, and then cache memory to CPU. This entire thing is called locality of reference. Remember this term, locality of reference. Do you understand it? If anyone has any question, you can ask me. Do you understand? Anyone has any doubt, any question regarding this party example? Do you understand the relationship between RAM, cache memory, and secondary memory? Give me a response.
Yes, sir.
Anyone has any doubt?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So locality of reference concept is clear. If the question will come as a locality of reference, what is locality of reference, how it can be achieved, I think you are able to give the